Rodrigo Roa Duterte, the 16th President of the Philippines, 2016 to 2022, emerged as one of the most controversial political figures in Southeast Asia. Known for his populist approach, unconventional rhetoric, and authoritarian tendencies, Duterte's political career marked a significant departure from traditional Filipino leadership styles. His tenure was characterized by a complex blend of populist appeal, strongman tactics, and a strategic use of digital platforms, particularly social media, to shape public perception and political discourse. Understanding Duterte's leadership requires an examination of both his governing methods and the instrumental role of social media in his rise and maintenance of power. Duterte, a lawyer by training and a long-serving mayor of Davao City, brought to the presidency a reputation for being a decisive, tough-on-crime leader. His mayoral tenure in Davao City was marked by aggressive campaigns against criminality, which earned him the nickname, the Punisher. This reputation became central to his presidential campaign, where he promised to eradicate drug-related crime within 6 months. The promise resonated with a population frustrated by corruption, inefficiency, and violence associated with the Philippine drug trade. Duterte's rise was emblematic of a broader global trend towards strongman politics, where voters favor leaders who claim to take decisive, sometimes extra-legal action to restore order and security. Ruling style. Duterte's ruling style can be described as populist authoritarian. Populism, in his context, involved positioning himself as a man of the people against entrenched elites and corrupt institutions. He frequently criticized previous administrations for failing to address crime, poverty, and corruption, portraying himself as an outsider capable of delivering rapid, tangible results. His populist approach was reinforced through direct, often informal communication with citizens, where he employed colloquial language, humor, and profanity to resonate with ordinary Filipinos. This method fostered a sense of intimacy and authenticity, allowing Duterte to bypass traditional media filters and directly connect with his electorate. Authoritarian tendencies were evident in his approach to governance and law enforcement. The most notable aspect of Duterte's presidency was his war on drugs, which resulted in thousands of extrajudicial killings and widespread reports of human rights abuses. Duterte's rhetoric often encouraged vigilante-style enforcement, framing the war on drugs as a moral crusade. Critics argue that his approach undermined democratic institutions, as law enforcement and judicial independence were frequently subordinated to executive directives. Moreover, Duterte exhibited centralization of power, often making key decisions personally rather than through established bureaucratic channels. This concentration of authority, while enhancing perceived decisiveness, also limited accountability and transparency within governance structures. Duterte's foreign policy also reflected his assertive and unconventional style. Breaking with decades of Philippine dependence on the United States, he pursued closer ties with China and Russia while occasionally antagonizing Western nations over human rights criticism. This independent posture, framed as safeguarding national sovereignty, further bolstered his populist image and reinforced the perception of Duterte as a decisive, unorthodox leader unafraid to challenge established norms. Use of social media. A defining feature of Duterte's political strategy was his sophisticated use of social media, which became central to both his election campaign and his governance. Unlike previous leaders who relied primarily on traditional media outlets, Duterte recognized the potential of digital platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to directly reach the populace. Social media allowed him to cultivate a powerful narrative, frame political debates, and mobilize support with unprecedented speed and reach. During the 2016 presidential campaign, Duterte leveraged social media to portray himself as a relatable, decisive, and anti-establishment candidate. His team employed targeted digital content, memes, videos, and viral posts to highlight Duterte's tough-on-crime image while simultaneously discrediting opponents. This approach was particularly effective in reaching younger voters and those outside traditional urban media hubs. The campaign's digital strategy relied not only on official posts but also on grassroots amplification, often coordinated through local networks and online communities. The result was a highly interactive and participatory political culture in which supporters became active promoters of Duterte's image. Once in office, Duterte continued to utilize social media as a tool for governance and public engagement. He used platforms like Facebook to announce policies, comment on current events, and communicate directly with citizens, bypassing traditional media scrutiny. This unmediated communication style reinforced his populist appeal and allowed him to present his version of events before alternative narratives could take hold. Social media also became a mechanism to shape public perception of the war on drugs. By highlighting successes and framing criticisms as attacks by biased elites or foreign actors, Duterte and his online supporters could maintain popular support despite widespread international condemnation. Critics argue, however, that Duterte's use of social media contributed to a more polarized political environment. His administration's online presence was characterized by aggressive messaging, trolling of opponents, and the dissemination of misinformation. Allegations emerged of coordinated online networks, sometimes described as troll armies, that targeted critics, spread disinformation, and reinforced pro-Duterte narratives. This digital strategy effectively cultivated an echo chamber where dissenting voices were marginalized, raising concerns about the impact on democratic discourse, media freedom, and informed public debate. Impact and legacy. Duterte's leadership left a complex and contested legacy. Domestically, he garnered significant support for his perceived decisiveness, anti-corruption stance, and efforts to reduce crime. Many Filipinos credited him with restoring a sense of order and prioritizing law and security. Economically, his tenure saw modest growth in infrastructure initiatives, such as the Build program, aimed at modernizing transportation, energy, and public services. Yet, Duterte's presidency also engendered significant controversy and criticism. Human rights organizations documented thousands of extrajudicial killings linked to the drug war, drawing condemnation from the United Nations and other international bodies. Critics argue that these practices violated constitutional and international law, undermined judicial independence, and normalized a culture of impunity. Furthermore, the aggressive use of social media for political propaganda and manipulation contributed to a fragmented public sphere, where misinformation often flourished and political debate became increasingly polarized. On the international stage, Duterte's independent foreign policy recalibrated the Philippines' relationships with major powers, balancing engagement with China and Russia while maintaining complex ties with the United States. This shift reflected both pragmatic considerations and his populist emphasis on sovereignty, but it also created tensions with traditional allies and international human rights watchdogs. The strategic integration of social media into Duterte's political toolkit provides a case study for contemporary leadership in the digital age. His presidency illustrates the dual nature of social media. It can enhance direct communication and mobilize support, but it can also amplify polarization, misinformation, and authoritarian tendencies. Duterte's approach underscores how digital platforms are not neutral channels but active arenas where political narratives are contested, shaped, and weaponized. Conclusion. Rodrigo Duterte represents a quintessential example of modern populist authoritarian leadership. His ruling style, characterized by populist rhetoric, authoritarian methods, and centralization of power, reflected a broader global trend toward leaders who claim decisive action and moral clarity in the face of institutional inefficiency. His innovative and often aggressive use of social media allowed him to bypass traditional media, cultivate a loyal following, and maintain a potent political narrative throughout his tenure. However, Duterte's legacy is deeply contested. While many Filipinos view him as a strong, relatable leader who addressed long-standing societal problems, his methods raised serious concerns about human rights, democratic norms, and the responsible use of digital communication. The interplay between his ruling style and social media strategy offers important lessons for understanding the opportunities and risks of digital-era governance. It highlights the power of direct communication and narrative control, but also warns of the potential for polarization, misinformation, and the erosion of institutional checks and balances. In sum, Rodrigo Duterte's presidency exemplifies how populist authoritarian leaders can leverage personal charisma, decisive action, and digital platforms to consolidate power and shape public perception. His tenure underscores the transformative impact of social media on modern politics, illustrating both its capacity to engage citizens and its potential to undermine democratic accountability. For scholars, policymakers, and observers, Duterte's leadership provides a striking case of how contemporary political power is increasingly mediated through digital channels, where perception, persuasion, and populist appeal can be as consequential as formal institutions and legal frameworks.